Protecting your investment off-road is one of the best things that you can do. And at RCI Off-Road, we want to make sure that you have the best quality protection that you can. Today, we're out here comparing an RCI Off-Road skid plate made for a 2024 Tacoma and something else that we picked up off of Amazon, also made for the 2024 Tacoma. Let's dive into some of the detailed differences. Here we have the RCI Off-Road engine skid plate made out of 3/16 steel. Comparing it to the competitor skid plate, which is a 12 gauge steel, making the RCI Off-Road engine skid plate about twice the thickness. This competitor skid plate that we picked up off Amazon, again, is made out of 12 gauge steel. I've noticed it's a 2-piece engine skid plate versus the RCI Off-Road's 1-piece engine skid plate. You can also tell there are no real bolt protectors or hardware protection rings or anything on this skid plate, which would make me a little concerned about shearing off hardware and some aggressive off-roading. Another thing I noticed right off the bat is that this skid plate setup from Amazon doesn't really provide any service-friendly access. There's no cutouts for oil drainage. There's no cover plate for accessing an oil filter, which means that you're gonna have to take this skid plate off anytime you want to perform some routine maintenance. Another thing that I noticed right off the bat is that this particular skid plate doesn't have any other kind of structure or support bracket behind it. The whole thing just feels a little bit flimsy, kind of cheap, and more honestly like a splash guard. I don't know if I would trust this to really protect my investment as much as I would a skid plate like this made out of 3/16 steel. Also has this 3/16 steel support bracket. That's really gonna reinforce the structure of this skid plate, making it much tougher, much more durable in the case that it's smashing up against rocks and skidding across the terrain. You can also appreciate the fact that it's service friendly. You've got your oil filter cover door here that you can pop off to access your oil filter. You've also got your drain plug hole down there so that you can keep this skid plate on when performing all of your routine maintenance. And man, this thing feels so much more durable. It's so much more robust. It will absolutely protect your vehicle. I have no question in my mind that this would be the way to go if you're looking for the most amount of protection for your vehicle. A major contributor to the quality of this skid plate has to do with the way that it's manufactured. It's all CNC fiber laser cutout, CNC press brake formed. It can either be welded by a very skilled fabricator or an automation type robot for very high quality welds. But the tooling that makes this skid plate possible is top notch. I can't really speak to how this skid plate was manufactured, but clearly isn't up to snuff. I personally wouldn't want to run a skid plate like that. I want to know with confidence that when I'm going off-road, I've got strength and durability and precision manufacturing behind the piece of armor that I'm putting on my vehicle.
All right guys, so we are back at the shop with the competitor skid plate on the ground. Now I'm about 10 feet up, and since we didn't feel safe mounting this skid plate on our 24 Tacoma and taking it off-road and testing it, we are going to drop some various items from the same height. I'm about 10 feet up here, and we're gonna do 3 drops per item. We're gonna work our way all the way up to dropping an RCI rock slider on it to kind of show the difference in material between our plate and the competitors. So let's start with this. This is a Kurt hitch, and I estimate it weighs about 15 pounds. I'm gonna drop this from about 10 feet, try to hit it right in the center, and let's see what kind of carnage we can get. All right, in 3, 2, 1. So that was a pretty good hit. I definitely saw some deformation on there, and I think I do see a little bit of a powder coat scuff. So let me grab that thing and let's drop it 3 more times and see what we get. All right, let's do drop number 2. In about 3, 2, 1. That was definitely a good hit. You can definitely see that kind of dent from the top there. I think the third hit is I'm gonna try to focus on that secondary, right where your oil pan would be for the third hit, and we'll see what that does. Yep, that one definitely dented right in the center there. So like Tim was saying earlier, the RCI skid plate is made out of 3/16 steel. We also have a 1/4 inch aluminum offering of skid plates, and I do think that the 1/4 inch aluminum, even though it's a more malleable material, would still hold up better than the competitors. So we have our 3/16 steel plate here, fresh out of the box. It's got our 3/16 support bracket on the back, and we're gonna run it through the same abuse, the same tests. So starting with the hitch, again, dropping 3 times, dropping from about 10 feet, and I'm gonna try to hit that seam where we saw the competitors deform quite a bit. I'm gonna try to hit that same seam on ours. So let's start with the first drop. 3, 2, 1. So we definitely scuffed powder there. I'm seeing a little bit of the white epoxy primer we put down poking out. So we're not all the way down to steel yet, and that'd be an easy touch up, but could definitely see a couple hits. All right, drop number 2. I'm gonna try to hit that same spot and see if we can get some good deformation. In 3, 2, 1. Oh yeah, that was right on that bend, and I'll have to inspect it a little bit closer, but from up here, it does not look like it was deformed at all. At this stage in the test on the competitors, that whole bend where your engine crossmember is was completely deformed and pressing up into the crossmember. Ours looks completely fine.
I'm not seeing anything down here.
Yeah, I think ours survived down there. So third and final drop, since ours is taking the abuse just fine and we're not getting any damage here, I'm gonna try to put a little bit of force when I throw this one down and see if the hitch will even do anything to it. So let's get this final one in 3, 2. There we go. So it took me putting some force and throwing it at it to finally get our first dent in the skid plate. And now that hit right on the ball, and that is a little baby dent. I'm not worried about that thing poking anything underneath. I mean, it could take a million of those hits and you'd still have it on your vehicle. So that's a solid hit.
Where's that dent? Oh, I see.
See, that's so hard to see that you can't even. Test number 2, or drop number 2, we're gonna do this rock. And thing probably weighs about 25, 30 pounds. I'm gonna try to hit it right in the center all 3 times. And again, we're about 10 feet up. So let's see what the competitor skid plate does. In 3, 2, 1. Yep, that's starting to flatten out that bend for sure. So here's where we'll start to see the big difference between 3/16 steel and 12 gauge. Is 12 gauge is going to start warping quite a bit more than our 3/16 plate will. Also, like Tim said, we don't have a support bracket on the backside of this plate, so I can already see where that thing's caved in the center. I'm really curious to see how our plate does versus that. Let's do drop number 2, about 10 feet. I'm gonna try to hit that oil pan again instead of that center bend, so see how she fares. In 3, 2, 1. Oh yeah, now you can see it's really warped. You can basically see the epicenter of that impact.
Look at that.
Yeah, I wouldn't be happy if that was underneath my truck right now. That's for sure. All right, third and final drop from our friend The Rock here. Let's see what she does. In 3, 2, 1. That was probably the best one out of all of them. Look at the way that thing creased inwards.
Now, would you trust that?
No, and I mean, although this seems extreme, like we're dropping a heavy rock, you can hit. Think about the weight of your vehicle, you know, coming down on a rock with a skid plate. That's going to be a lot more force. So if this thing's warping and cracking and bending at just, you know, a rock from 10 feet, I don't want to know what happens when I drop a 6,000 pound truck on a rock with the skid plate. So, all right, so test number 2, we got our about 30 pound rock. And again, gonna do 3 drops from 10 feet, just like we did with the competitors. And let's see how the RCI engine skid holds up. So drop number 1 in 3, 2. Oh yeah, that was a solid hit. And that was right on that bend. And I can see a little bit of deformation. We didn't even break through the powder coat, and I bet that engine skid's still straight. So Drop number 2, I'm gonna try to go more towards the oil pan and see what happens if you hit your oil pan on a rock. In 3, 2. I mean, same thing I've been saying. There's a couple little hits. We still didn't break through the powder coat and a little bit of deformation, but you would still run this skid for years to come. So, all right, 3rd and final drop. 2. That one was a good one too. Same thing. You can definitely see a little bit of deformation where the point of impact was, but overall the shape of the skid isn't as mangled as the other one was. And I bet when we flip it around, we don't see very much either. So let's drop something heavier. Let's move on to that slider and see what happens. Final test of this thing, which I'm fairly certain it's no longer going to be a skid plate afterwards, is a RCI rock slider. This is actually a prototype slider for a Jeep. Just a little tidbit for you there, but this thing weighs about 70 pounds. So I'm gonna drop it like a javelin with all the weight on the bottom, and let's see how a point impact does. All right, we ready? 3, 2, 1. Yeah. That's not something you want to hit on your skid plate for sure, but obviously that point of impact is very extreme and right on that seam where your front cross member is, and pretty certain you would have just messed up your truck right there. That's a good, yeah, that's a good hit. All right, just for fun, let's drop this thing one more time. Woo. All right, you ready? 3, 2. Yeah, that skid plate is toast. Let's see how the RCI off-road one holds up and show you guys why spending a little bit of extra coin will protect your expensive truck way better. This thing over really quick. Obviously on the front, I can see all the deformation right here of these big hard hits, but it's even more evident if you flip it to the back. You can see where it's all bowed in right here. This whole rear is bowed in. These almost feel like they are about to come all the way through. And I mean, it is a steel skid plate, so it's better than not having anything, but I don't like how much this deformed up towards the truck in these impacts. And we're not really capturing how hard of a hit it would have been off-road, even though this testing is pretty extreme. So yeah, I mean, this thing's trash. It's done. All right, so 3rd and final, we got our RCI rock slider. And yeah, let's see what this thing does to this. In 3, 2. Nice. Nice. So that hit right in between where our steel support bracket bolts up and right in the standoff tube. And you can see a pretty big dent was made by that. But since we have that additional steel bracket on the back, it held the structure of the skid plate, and the skid plate is still not even close to hitting anything behind it. So that's why we'll flip it around and show you guys in a little bit, but that's why that bracket makes such a big difference. Just for fun, let's drop this thing one more time. All right, one more time. See what this here rock slider does to it. In 3, 2. I gave a little bit of extra sauce on that one too. Same thing. It looks like I honestly can't tell the difference anymore between what was the rock and what was the slider hitting it. The plate definitely has some hits. Still looks just fine. I bet I could still get a couple $100 on Marketplace from it.
Let's compare them.
Let's see what they look like, huh? So let's take a look at this RCI skid. I can see a couple spots where we scraped powder, but we just made it to the epoxy primer that we put underneath. So, you know, still just touch it up and it's good to go. That final slider hit down here in the least supported area, that was definitely a good hit. And you can definitely see a big old deformation here. I'm also curious to see when I flip it, what this one in between the engine support bracket looks like. So yeah, let's flip this thing around and see what it looks like. Oh yeah, that's a good hit. So here's that bracket I was talking about, and I'm sure Tim told you guys about too. It is 3/16 steel, and it does support underneath your engine, underneath your oil pan. So you basically have the space from the face of this to the face of the plate before you hit anything engine wise. So although that this is, yeah, bent up and pretty gnarly hit, you could still run this plate. It's still gonna bolt right up. Hit it with a hammer a couple times, I bet I can make it straight, and I'd still run it on my truck for years to come.
You wanna grab the competitor and
oh yeah,
what they look like side by side?
Yeah, let's set these things up, huh? All right, so just looking at these two plates together, obviously this hit right here on this face is terrible. And this bend started as about, you know, a 45, 50 degree bend. It's now completely flat, if not inverted in this spot. You can see where our bend is completely flat still. Big difference in material thickness, construction. Obviously a huge difference in material. 3/16 steel versus 12 gauge. 12 gauge is gonna warp. It's gonna not protect your investment. 3/16 is gonna give you all the protection. And yeah, our 3/16 plates they're built for the heavy rock crawlers. They're built for, you know, hitting your plates hard and a lot. And like I said, I doubt this one will bolt up anymore because of how deformed these are. I bet I would have to really, really work this bend out and probably drill a different mounting hole. This one would bolt straight up to the truck, and I'm probably gonna bolt it up to the truck and use it on a trail in the next coming weeks. So again, our plates are engineered, manufactured, painted, shipped out, all from this facility in Loveland, Colorado. It's all USA made, and can't speak from where the competitors is from, but you get what you pay for sure. And I'd feel a lot safer having this plate underneath my expensive truck than whatever this thing is. So Amazon versus RCI, definitely RCI.